Hi, everyone. Seems like we have an intimate group today, so if you want to move closer, feel free to make yourself comfortable closer to the front. If not, I'm happy to project my voice all the way to the back corner there. My name is A-Bel Gong. I use they them pronouns. I'm with the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative. We're a nonprofit housed at the University of San Diego, so just about 15 minutes south of here. Um, we are a network organization aiming to advance climate solutions in the San Diego region, and so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Um, is our organization, who we are, and what kind of extreme heat research that we do. And then I'll pass it over to my colleagues Marin and Nan to talk about the SoCal Heat Hub, which we are collaborators on with. Okay, great. All right. So, just to give you an overview about the San Diego region as a whole, I know that this is maybe might be a little bit of a refresher for some of you who are familiar with our region and maybe the environmental characteristics of our region. We stand at a very unique location here in the San Diego region. We are biodiverse. We are diverse in culture, and we are also really geographically diverse. So, as you know, there are some really great spots to camp, both along the beach and in the mountains, and also in the desert. And this is like beautiful trifecta of different habitats, which also come with a lot of different, as we call them, ecotones or transitional habitats that also make way for some really unique challenges here in San Diego as well, environmentally. We have a series of watersheds. We have the coastal ocean, the coast and the ocean as well. We're home to 3.3 million people, so we're quite urbanized as well, and that urban natural land interface interacts a lot with each other, right? When we have all these really beautiful natural lands, but also all of these people who are living and developing land, both that already exist as developed land, but also we're kind of expanding outwards. We have 19 local governments, which include the cities and 18 cities in the county. I learned the other day that that is far less than LA, which has about like over 100 cities within their county. So I was like, oh, thank God I have to talk to less people when we're doing coordinated action. We also have 18 federally recognized Native American reservations that are represented by 17 tribal governments, but this is the most in the continental U.S. And then we also host several special jurisdictions, including the Port of San Diego, the San Diego International Airport, and our different transportation agencies like SANDAG and Caltrans District 11, and the U.S. Navy. So all of these different characteristics, while they make our region so wonderful, they are also faced they also face very interesting and unique climate challenges. So these are just some stats. By the end of the 21st century, within our county, our temperature and intensity of that temperature will increase from about 20 to 50%. So what we're feeling now, it's going to get hotter by about 20 to 50%. I don't know about you guys, but my tolerance for the heat when it gets really hot here isn't very high. Additionally, our precipitation will remain highly variable. This means that the frequency of our flash floods and our different storm surges, as well as the intensity of these storms, will increase. So you might remember the hurricanes from last year. Things, a phenomenon like that are going to become more commonplace. They might not even be like a once in a lifetime phenomenon anymore. We'll have increased wildfire risk and drought. I'm sure you've already seen the headlines for this. The devastating headlines that happened in LA. We are not protected from this unless we do something about it. And then finally, sea level rise, which is something that I'm very passionate about, will rise by about 3 feet, which also exacerbates these flooding events due to storm surge and affects their water quality as well. And so you might think that, these are all kind of like isolated hazards or events from each other, but they're actually very connected, and they also disproportionately affect communities that live all around the county and all around our region. And so just to give you an example, I'm going to focus on extreme heat because this is what our conference is all about. For those who are experiencing extreme heat, people eastward and away from the coast usually experience extreme heat a little more because they're further away from the ocean's natural cooling properties, and they live closer to the desert. A lot of them maybe don't have or can't afford to have AC due to our beautiful conditions out here on the coast. Many low-income communities have been driven out or gentrified and pushed back more inland. And so these communities who are already low income and marginalized may not be able to afford the infrastructure that allows them to cool, as well as a lot of them maybe rely more on public transportation, which means that they can't access these coastal areas. And so if they can't access these coastal areas, they can't access these natural cooling sites or cool zones. And so that is also exacerbated. Extreme heat is also exacerbated by sea level rise in that effect too, because if these people who can't afford to sort of artificially cool down their house and want to travel to go to sea level to the beach, and sea level rise is affecting the beaches, and there are more beach closures and things like that, then they don't have those opportunities to stay healthy and stay cool during really hot extreme heat events that we have yet to see. I feel like this year it's gonna creep up on us pretty late in the year. So yeah, just focusing on extreme heat, that's kind of like one example of how our climate impacts exacerbate both existing inequities, but also interact and interplay with each other and worsen these inequities. So thinking about this, there is a sort of push in San Diego specifically to have a regional approach on how we address our climate adaptation, our climate mitigation, and resilience. That being how we change the way that we operate to climate hazards, how we prepare for climate hazards, and also how we prevent climate hazards from happening. And so I think that this was explained really well in our earlier session with the Binational Resilience Initiative and the Tijuana River sewage crisis. But the shocks and stresses of climate change go beyond our political borders. A hurricane doesn't just look at like the state of Florida and it's like, okay, I'm only going to target the state of Florida and nowhere else. It usually goes beyond those borders, right? And so the same thing happens for us here in San Diego. We have to really think about like our climate hazards beyond just maybe the city of San Diego or the city of Chula Vista or even the county of San Diego. How are we working together with our partners cross jurisdictionally and also across international borders to prevent further damage and further risks from sort of hurting our communities. And so here at the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, we bring together cross-sectorally all of these different players in the climate action game, this being our city governments, our county government, all the special districts that I mentioned earlier, nonprofits, as well as academia. So we work really closely with UC San Diego and Scripps to envision this region that is prosperous and resilient through climate action planning and projects that I will be explaining in a little bit. We're made up of about over 60 members, so you might recognize some of the many members that we have here. It's a lot of different city governments and nonprofits mostly, and consulting, environmental consulting firms. If you don't see your logo on here and you would like to be a member, please come and talk to me later. Our membership is by organization, and so if you do see your logo on here, then you are a part of our membership, which is really awesome. And I'll explain a little bit right now what some of our members do together. So as I said, we're a network organization, so our job is to bring people together. So I have the lovely duty to make and create and develop events and workshops for our local practitioners to come together and dream big and do some amazing collaborative work together. So we do quarterly network meetings. These are open to the public, for the most part free. Unless you want lunch, then that'll be an extra $15 for non-members, please. And usually what will happen, we'll have like a learning portion where we'll have presenters, usually speaking on a specific theme. So this upcoming month in September, we're having our network meeting on the success stories of our region. So we'll be presenting on a few things to just sort of talk to people about how we can take from our successes, but also our lessons learned. We also have our member-only mixers. So these are safe spaces for our members to network freely and just in like a casual space. So we do a lot of happy hours and field trips and things like that. We also put on special events. So my team is very creative. This past year, we did a coastal forum up in Irvine with our partners over in LA and in the Orange County area. And our closing keynote was a puppet show featuring the LA Times puppeteers of the 404 LA Times team. So that was really fun. We also work really closely with different climate collaboratives around the state. And so this is one of the big energy conferences that our team attended, where we got to share our knowledge and best practices with other energy professionals, energy resilience professionals around the state. And so we not only focus specifically on our region and help those in our region, we try to create resources and knowledge that can be applied to other areas of our state, of our nation, around the world. And so that's kind of our programming in a nutshell. I'm going to dive in a little bit about our extreme heat research, and then I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues. But first, so this is some of our extreme heat research that we did. It's mostly through our collaboration with the SoCal Heat Hub, which you'll hear about just really quickly in a second. We have the really fortunate opportunity to work with our students at the University of San Diego through the College Corps program. UC San Diego also has a program. This is run by the state to advance workforce development in 4 different pillars. Let's see if I can remember them. Climate change, K-12 education, food insecurity, and can't remember the last one, but we obviously fall under the climate change pillar of that. And so our wonderful undergraduate researcher, Nicole Facina, actually presented here last year on the work that she did of how extreme heat research and community can affect communities through community engagement. These are some of the research case studies that she did during her time. I think these are the last 2 ones that she did under the supervision of both myself and my colleague Marin. And she really got to explore the intersections of our housing crisis with extreme heat, as well as how urban heat islands and green spaces interact with each other, and how we can use green spaces to sort of combat urban heat islands. And yeah, she was a psychology major, didn't really know much about climate change, but I'm happy to say that we did successfully convert her, and she's been applying to master's programs in public policy because she wants to continue amazing extreme heat research that she did while she was with us for the 2 years that she was, which is super awesome. Just want to go over one more thing. So recently, I'm really excited to announce this. We were awarded $750,000 through the California Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation. They had their first round of extreme heat and community resilience program grant program come out, and we applied, and we ended up getting awarded. So this will be a 2-year project. We will be collaborating with Scripps and UC San Diego, as well as the cities of Chula Vista, cities of La Mesa, and city of San Diego. We will be creating heat action plans, this being a sort of outline or guideline of how the cities will address extreme heat in their respective jurisdictions. Scripps will be developing some heat vulnerability indices. So looking at the different temperatures and how they sort of interact in tandem with different social and maybe even economical demographic data. And so that the cities have that resource available to them to do further work on this, on their extreme heat plans. And we'll be making a cooling solutions toolkit, which will hopefully be something that is replicable for any other city, both within our county and outside of our county, to use and apply to their own work. And then one thing that's not on here too is we're going to be doing some demonstration projects. So we're hoping to have maybe like 3 to 5 demonstration pilot projects throughout the region that will actually be tangible infrastructure or deliverables that sort of showcase how we can cool down our cities, how we can use all this data that we collected to actually have an impact on our local communities. And so if you have any interesting ideas for different pilot projects, I would love to hear them. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Marin to talk a little bit more about the SoCal Heat Hub. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, A-Bel. Hi, everybody. My name is Marin Hale. I'm a staff researcher at, oh, here it is. Thank you. I'm a staff researcher at UC San Diego, focused on extreme heat and also extreme heat's health impacts. And I'm also the project manager for this project called the SoCal Heat Hub, which is a collaboration between lots of different researchers at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, all focused on the topic of extreme heat. And we partner with the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative and A-Bel with our community engagement portion of this project. So today I'm going to talk about what it is that we do, just a project overview, and then a little bit into some of the specific papers that have come out from our public health portion of this project. Okay. But first, I'm going to start with this map just to orient you today. This is a map of the city of San Diego and some of the surrounding areas. It's a map of surface temperature, land surface temperature, averaged over several summers. The dark purple is cooler temperatures, and the yellow areas are the hottest areas. So let's do a little interactive activity. If you want to raise your hand, what are some things that you notice about this map and about the distribution of heat here? Feel free to raise your hand or just speak out. Yeah. Yeah, so like maybe some of these, I don't know if there's a pointer on here, but maybe some of these, or I'll repeat that as well for the microphone. Some of the areas more inland he's seeing are showing up as darker. Um, Definitely there's some hot spots that are further inland that look like they may be in like the canyons or maybe along rivers. You can see those kind of windy, dark purple, dark blue parts of the map. Yeah, good one. Anyone? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so some of the more densely populated areas are showing up as that bright yellow, so they're hotter. Yeah, like El Cajon, Kearney Mesa is another one I notice. And yeah, North Park, you can even see El Cajon Boulevard and University Avenue there. Definitely, that's a great one. Maybe let's do one more. Yeah, all the way in the back. Yes, yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, so Balboa Park is this big square, sort of on your left. Yeah, so a lot of the greener areas or parks are showing up there as cooler. Yeah, Point Loma, there's that large cemetery on Point Loma, Mission Trails. Mount Soledad area is also one of those blue spots. You can even see tiny little neighborhood and city parks on here. So I live in North Park. There's a tiny rectangle above Balboa Park. I don't know if you can see that. That's like my neighborhood park. It's just like a block of blue. But yeah, so I just the summary here is essentially that extreme heat is very unevenly distributed, and that's influenced by things like vegetation, water cover, and urbanization. So, a major part of this research hub is investigating what causes these patterns and also how they influence people and how we can improve upon them and maybe make that distribution of heat more even. Okay, so maybe I need to click now. I think this isn't working, but that's okay. Okay, so there's been a lot of work in this area in recent years, both locally in the US and around the world. These are just some headlines that represent some of the attention that extreme heat has gotten recently. And these are all from work by researchers in the SoCal Heat Hub, or these are papers that interviewed researchers in the SoCal Heat Hub. So this is an important topic, and a hub like ours is really needed. So, what is the SoCal Heat Hub? We are a research team focused on the topic of extreme heat in coastal Southern California, headquartered at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, which is a department of UC San Diego, and partnering also with University of San Diego. We're a transdisciplinary research hub. So we've got people from different fields, but we're converging on the same topic of extreme heat from those different perspectives, integrating our knowledge from different disciplines on the same topic. And we also, a big part of the hub is the co-production of knowledge about extreme heat and adaptation with our community and with stakeholders who have, who are affected by the issue. So, quick overview of the 5 main theme topics of the Heat Hub. So, we have 3 main research areas, and those are the green circles here. And these 3 core research areas are represented as a Venn diagram because the research in each one interacts with the research in the other ones. Sorry about that. So the research findings inform the research of the other groups. But these 2 blue circles of education and community engagement, those represent the all-encompassing goals of our hub, which inform the research as well, which is why they are on the outside there. So today, A-Bel already gave you an amazing description of the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, and we're working with them on our community engagement part of this research hub. So I won't be getting into that as much because we've already got a great overview already. And then after I speak today, Nan will be talking about our education to broaden participation effort. So today I'll focus on just the research, quick overview of each, and then a little more on the public health research thrust. So, theme 1 which is led by a few different researchers at Scripps, Sasha Gershinov, Kristen Gerges, and Rachel Komesha. They're investigating how ocean atmosphere and land processes drive and or modulate extreme heat across varied coastal zone climates, and also what changes can we expect with climate change. How will extreme heat be different under climate change in the future? And they're using observational studies, but we also have another sub-team doing climate modeling runs. And we're looking at factors such as atmospheric circulation, coastal low clouds, which is a very important factor in determining extreme heat patterns in the coastal zone, and even the ocean. So we're also doing a little bit of research on marine heat waves. Our next main research area is public health, epidemiology, and environmental justice, which is led by Tariq Ben Marnia. So this group is investigating the locally specific health impacts of extreme heat. How do they vary according to land use and socioeconomic factors? So if you think back to that map I showed at the beginning, some of these factors that we're looking at include things like tree cover or impervious surface cover, the built environment, because that can affect your heat exposure, but also factors like income, age, race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, things that may be influenced by historical discrimination, things like redlining, because that can also impact your vulnerability and exposure to extreme heat. And then finally, our last research theme is ecohydrology and sustainable greening, which is being led by Morgan Levy. So her team is looking at the locally specific relationships between temperature and vegetation, and also where and how we might be able to use vegetation in heat adaptation in San Diego, and also the associated climate and water resource constraints. So if you're not familiar with the term ecohydrology, it essentially is an interdisciplinary field that looks at the interactions between water and the environment, ecological systems. So this is really important, especially in San Diego, and also I think an underappreciated topic, because of course we all want to adapt to extreme heat, and one of the most commonly suggested ideas that I think I usually hear the most is urban greening, which is great, and it's been shown to be effective in a lot of contexts, but also requires some nuance depending on where you are. And in San Diego and California in general, we're prone to drought. Our native habitat here in San Diego is maybe more scrub and chaparral. So there's a little bit of a balance between, using green adaptation strategies and also being mindful of climate and water. So next, I am just going to dive into a little bit of the work coming out of Theme 2, our epidemiology team. Okay, so here's a paper that came out last year from our research group, and it made, okay, let me back up. This paper looked at each zip code in the state and what type of heat wave is most impactful in terms of hospitalizations for each of those zip codes. So when it comes to heat and health, the type of extreme heat can make a huge difference, whether it's a longer heat wave, a shorter heat wave, whether it's happening or more emphasized in the daytime versus at night, as was mentioned in the plenary session this morning. Those nighttime heat waves can be a huge problem. So these factors go into the definitions of heat waves that we use for policy and planning, like heat early warning systems. So this paper used 36 different heat wave event definitions to identify the most dangerous types of heat events based on minimum, maximum, and diurnal temperatures using various thresholds. So like the 99th percentile of extreme heat, for example, and then different durations for each zip code in the state. So this spatially informed approach to understanding which types of heat waves cause the most hospitalizations guides local policies, prioritizing dangerous heat events to reduce the heat health burden. I'm going to go to the next one just to save a little time. I had a little more to say, but I'm running low. So this is a paper that one of the PhD students who just defended her thesis this past summer worked on, Anais Tatum. So she examined the spatiotemporal relationships between exposure to heat waves and acute care utilizations. And as part of this research, she did a random effects meta-regression between, applying that to the modification of this relationship by community characteristics. So the community characteristics explain the spatial heterogeneity of heat-related health impacts and contribute most to community susceptibility. So she looked at 145 different community characteristics. This is just some of them that could potentially explain possible spatial heterogeneity in heat-related health hospitalizations at the zip code level. And most of these are things that are related to like structural racism, discrimination, redlining, that kind of thing. So some of the results here, I can't get into all of it, but she found several economic discrimination characteristics led to some of the strongest positive estimates, meaning they exacerbated the heat impact on health. Although the positive estimates were predominantly comprised of social and cultural discrimination characteristics. And then I will also highlight one more paper. And this is actually something I've been working on recently. So this is a paper looking at the use of green space to minimize or reduce heat attributable hospitalizations in urbanized zip codes of California. So this was a pretty simple study, just using a simple regression model between heat-related hospitalizations and levels of green space. And we measured green space using two indicators. So they are not perfect measures of green space, but they are factors that are correlated to green space. So tree canopy cover and impervious surface cover, or really the inverse or lack of impervious surface cover. So we did a regression between those green space indicators and heat-related hospitalizations. And using that regression coefficient, we applied it to 14 hypothetical scenarios in which we either increased tree canopy or reduced impervious surface cover by varying amounts across the metropolitan zip codes, and depending on, whether we wanted to be a more comprehensive greening strategy or whether we wanted to focus more on equity. So that's the 14 different scenarios. They all have different definitions that I don't have time to get into today, but we found that in all of the scenarios, there was a reduction in heat attributable hospitalizations with an increase in green space. The map here is for one of the scenarios, scenario 8, which involved decreasing impervious surface cover by 10% across all California urban zip codes. And this resulted in 5 avoided hospitalizations for every 1 heat wave day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you extrapolate that to like the number of heat wave days in a year, which I think we're seeing, I'm thinking back to the plenary session again, maybe around 40 heat waves days a year, and multiply that by 5. That's a lot of potential avoided hospitalizations. All right, I think I've gone over time, but luckily I'm wrapping it up. So a couple of next steps for theme 2. We are hoping now to quantify the contribution of some of those factors I talked about for the theme 1 research. So the coastal low clouds, atmospheric circulation, marine heat, and how those could affect spatial temporal patterns and heat health impacts. All right, I'd be happy to talk to you after this or by email, and you can also check out our website for more information at the socalheathub.ucsd.edu. And now I'll pass it on to Nan Renner to talk about the education work of the Heat Hub.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nan Renner. I co-lead the K-12 education effort to broaden participation in STEM with the SoCal Heat Hub. And just to get a sense of who's in the room, how many medical professionals do we have here today? Okay. And how many students? Excellent. And anyone connected with the K-12 system, either as a parent, an advocate, an educator? Okay, great. Well, we are all communicators, and we all have a platform to stand on, and I'm going to end my quick talk with a call to action. So this is what I'm talking about today. Very quickly, our goals are to work with K-12 systems to support students in understanding the causes, consequences, and solutions to extreme heat. We want to catalyze action. We want to encourage administrators, teachers, and students to be agents for positive change. And we are enhancing science education in all of these ways listed on the slide. Some of the activities that we are engaged in, based on what the community has as strengths and assets and what the community needs, we have been co-designing curriculum resources, which we'll be sharing broadly in the coming year. We've provided professional learning opportunities, and as I mentioned, we're really focusing on systemic change. And here pictured is a Climate Champions Design Summit with educators from K-12 and out-of-school learning organizations. So we want to give our educators an experience like we hope they will give their students in classrooms. We promote curiosity. We do hands-on stuff. Here, a tabletop experiment with the heat absorption capacity of different materials. On the right side, we engage our educators in modeling Earth systems, taking that ecosystem approach. And we encourage diving into data and really seeking to understand our current reality using this common what do you notice, what do you wonder routine. I want to highlight for you a tool that may be useful to you in your work. We're also using it in education settings. This was developed by Morgan Levy's lab with the SoCal Heat Hub. It's the Eco Hydrology and Heat Explorer. There's you can find it on our SoCal Heat Hub website. And this enables a comparison of specific locations. In this case, what's pictured is land surface temperature on the left and vegetation on the right. So you can zoom into Balboa Park and see why it might be cooler there because there's greater vegetation coverage. We've been getting kids out into classrooms and park spaces, actually collecting data. As I mentioned, this is active hands-on science, so they're asking questions, they're collecting data, interpreting the data, seeing patterns, identifying opportunities, and advocating for change. And in our curriculum resources, the students do create a vision for a future cooler community, and we create opportunities for them to share their visions with decision makers. Here's a really useful tool that was created by a network of organizations at the state level, this Green Schoolyard Tree Canopy Equity Study. I'm not going to go into detail here, but in a nutshell, we have built schoolyards to function as heat islands, and these are unsafe, unhealthy environments for students, community members, teachers. These are not good places to learn. These are not good places to play. And so we really want to use schoolyard greening as a lever for change in greening communities. Schoolyards and joint use school campuses with municipal parks can be cooling centers. They can be places where people come to learn and do work together. And we are working with a national nonprofit called Green Schoolyards America to develop a Green Schoolyards Leadership Institute for San Diego County, working with districts, administrators, and teachers, involving youth as well to make change at the local level. So my call to action for you today is to advocate in your communities for, and in your school systems, for greening schoolyards, for greening neighborhoods, and all the benefits that come along with that. We've learned a lot about that today for health and well-being, and to share opportunities for partnership and funding for green infrastructure. Share with each other, share with us. We are all working together to co-create the future that we want to inhabit. Here's the contact info for the leadership team of the education program with the SoCal Heat Hub. And we have 1 minute for a question. and chat with folks. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Cooling Solutions Toolkit will serve for our city governments. It's kind of like a regional, like case study, lessons learned kind of thing for other cities to do so. But one of the cool things about our demonstration and pilot projects is that it isn't necessarily restricted to just building infrastructure to cool down our areas. We can also do communications toolkits and things like that for families and individuals. So we are definitely like looking into like ways that we can integrate that into our project as well. Yeah. And I realized I don't have any slides on our presentation that have my contact information, but our general email is sdclimatecollab@sandiego.edu if anybody ever wants to reach out with more questions. But yeah, thank you for the question. I think unfortunately we're out of time, so thank you everybody for coming to our session, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool. Yeah.